Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here, and my thanks to the organisers. A very big eforisto to everyone who's put this together. The panel is Energy's Great Game, the geopolitics of global energy market. My name is John Roberts, and I'm a consultant with a small company. And I want to start by saying very simply, we live in a very weird era indeed. It's an era in which the most important, the most powerful person on the planet does not consider that there is such a thing as objective truth. So what does this mean to, for example, efforts to combat climate change, efforts to improve the development of countries, efforts to develop a peaceful settlement to Middle East disputes, efforts to tackle endemic diseases? All of these are mortally threatened by uncertainty and unpredictability. And yet there is a strange normality. Governments are reacting in fairly predictable manners to the lack of predictability from the Trump administration. Then we have the paradox. America is on the move, but is the West in retreat? What are the situations concerning Ukraine, Georgia, Sahel, or in the Pacific concerning Taiwan? And what of energy? There's the advance of US LNG, a most welcome development. But how is the energy transition progressing in Europe? Surprisingly well at the moment. The EU is still pushing ahead with the green agenda. But perhaps the most important thing is that the underlying investment in renewables is accelerating. According to the IEA last summer, investment in what they term clean energy, which is non-fossil fuels, renewables, nuclear, and all the infrastructure required for that, is pushing upwards of 1.9 trillion, while investment in fossil fuel development is below 1.1 trillion. Not quite 2 to 1, but almost. And then you've got other issues. Development of infrastructure. Southeast Europe, progressing well. Makes it possible to imagine the elimination, not immediately, but eventually, of lignite, and its replacement, one hopes, with clean electricity, as well as natural gas. But then you've got the natural gas issue in Southeast Mediterranean. What is there to say when all roads at present currently lead to Egypt, and Egypt is a subsidized market that remains in deficit? So we have a whole set of difficulties, of paradoxes. And my question to the ministers is exactly the same. Where do you fit in this very weird geopolitical situation? So we will start with Greece's Minister of Environment and Energy, Mr. Theodoros Skylakakis, and the floor is yours.
Well, let me thank you for the weird question, because you are asking what can we do in a strange world, and can we continue our policies or not? And the obvious answer is, in an unpredictable world, you have to factor in this unpredictability and go to the essentials that can survive any realistic scenario. And the essentials in this case, for the case of Greece, is that we have a surplus of CO2 rights. So we have 10 million CO2 rights surplus on our targets in the last 4 or 5 years, and another 10 million in the next 3 years, and another at least 20 till 2030, which means that we are overachieving our climate targets. We are moving forward with renewables faster than most other countries are. We now have an electricity demand, average demand of 6 gigawatts of electricity. And we have 8 gigawatts of photovoltaics, 5 gigawatts of 5-point-something gigawatts of wind. And we are going to have in the next 3.5 years 14 gigawatts of photovoltaics and 7 gigawatts of wind, which means that we are one of the fastest growing renewable-based energy markets in the world. Lignite is going away for a very simple reason. It's not economically feasible to have lignite anymore. It has bigger costs than any other electricity source that we have. We are building interconnections because a renewable-based market needs interconnections, batteries, and the right percentages of photovoltaics and wind not to be overexposed to one technology. So we are doing all three. In batteries, we stopped subsidies. I believe subsidies are something that stops the development of investments, especially in when you have big subsidies and the prices are dropping of the specific technology, because everybody waits till the last possible moment before he makes his investment to take the best of the technology and the best of the subsidy. So we have a very, let's say, serious policy on moving with the green transition. And at the same time, we are saying to our other European partners that we need to increase the efficiency of the green transition. We need to have a single target policy, as our Prime Minister said to the President of the Commission in a letter a few weeks ago, where we go with to achieve all our climate targets, but with the least possible cost. Because today, Europe is achieving its targets, but with increased cost, because we have put too many sub-targets in our policies and too many bureaucratic decisions going together with these specific sub-targets, which most of them were put for industrial policy reasons. We tried to become Europe the most efficient, that was 20 years ago, the most efficient producer of green technologies, and that hasn't happened.
So what you're saying is, it's fine for the European Union or for national governments to set an overall target, but leave it to the members or the communities or the regions to decide how best to do that.
Exactly. And I would say not the regions, I would say the governments, because essentially when you break the target, the more you break the target, the more expensive it is to achieve it. Yeah. So if you put a target in every municipality of Europe, you will probably add to the cost 20, 30, 40% of achieving the effort. So you need to have as much efficiency in your climate policy. And this is also very important for another reason, because when we are trying to be the example, the paradigm of green transition, and we do it expensively, we do not help climate policy. We do exactly the opposite. We are undermining climate policy when we are doing an inefficient transition, because we are sending to the rest of the world the signal that climate policy is something very expensive.
So can I turn to George Papanastasiou?
George Papanastasiou.
It's easier to say George, John. Just try the George and it's okay. Yes.
But you said Skylakakis correctly, so you broke the record.
This could go from bad to worse. George,
yes.
Can I just simply ask you then, not just where do you fit in, but your attitude towards efficiency and how you develop energy efficiently in Cyprus and the East Med context?
Okay, thank you, John, and I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me here. It's a pleasure. I'm on my way home, as I explained to you. I was in Poland in a Council of Ministers for Trade and Competitiveness. And before I reply to your question, I would like to deliver some of the messages that the countries, they have delivered at the Trade and Competitiveness meeting. I can tell you that the energy, despite being a subject of trade and competitiveness, it was the #1 subject for conversation, simply because energy links to everything. And I have some notes from the meeting, and I will just read words or sentences that they were mentioned at the meeting. Coherence between the member states to address the challenges, the moving environment, the uncertainty. And the uncertainty is not coming from only the political environment, but it's coming also from new policies that we see coming, for example, from the new US administration. We see wars that they are disrupting the supply of natural gas to Europe. We see Europe suffering because its heavy industry cannot be competitive. So you understand this is our new environment. And it's even more new because of the latest statements of the US administration. So coherence, and they meant coherence of the member states, is an important word. Technologies. Developing technologies so that we make Europe autonomous. You know that raw materials, they are not in Europe, they are in the neighborhood perhaps. But you understand, if the low-cost energy from Russia is not anymore there, and then there is support, there is dependency coming from the US or any other country, you understand that in Europe we shifted the dependency from Russia to a dependency of somewhere else. We didn't do much. You understand that we may hear in the next few days that there will be taxation imposed on US LNG exports. So you understand that all this comes into the equation. We need to develop technologies that they are sustainable. Who will fund the technologies in Europe? This is what it is. And the big question is, keeping competitiveness in your industry whilst you are injecting funds in order to develop the technologies to become autonomous. And it is a matter of survival. Which comes first? The injection of funds and the injection and the investment on technologies in order to make you autonomous, what happens with your industry and your competitiveness, how you protect your industry, how you protect the automotive industry, the electric vehicles that they are produced in China versus the electric vehicles that they are produced in Germany. Energy dependence was coming up as a big message. Our strength is our unity. We see Europe that as soon as there is a crisis out there, energy crisis, we see a kind of an introversion. I mean, every country looks in itself instead of looking in the wider region, the European Union. This is what they were saying. We need a level playing field. The level playing field means that we need, if a country in the third world provides subsidies to its products, we need to do something in order to protect our industries. And energy is one of the matters that was coming up very weight. And last but not least, you understand that Europe found itself in a situation where the low-cost energy is not there. Geopolitics in the neighborhood, they need to be managed. The war between Russia and Ukraine is still there. You understand that we don't know, and we hope that there will be some resolution of this matter. There is another war which was happening in our neighborhood, which is the Eastern Mediterranean, between Gaza, Hezbollah, and Israel. You understand this is disrupting the whole energy supply, or it develops the uncertainty which brings energy prices higher up. And in this environment, which is already complex, we see a US administration coming up with taxation, with different statements about geographies. But the most important, which will make Europe suffer most probably, it's taxation on products which they are imported in the US from Europe. And energy, which is the LNG exports towards Europe, because Europe at this point in time relies very much on LNG exports from the US, as well as other, let's say, LNG supplies. Cutting the long story short, John, I believe that we need to rethink in Europe. Energy is very important, and I fully agree with Minister Skylakakis that renewables could be the way forward, but renewables not as a standalone, let's say, production of electricity from renewables, but we need to develop the whole system, the whole supply chain, so that it is efficient. It is a matter now of how much we invest and when do we invest in order to be able to cope with the technology, which in my personal and humble opinion is a bit back in terms of supporting the efficiencies that we need in the renewables. And if we talk about renewables, production is one, grids is another, that we need to upgrade grids. Storage, of course, is very important in order to make these renewables being used in more hours in the day. Wind power generation provides possibly a different solution to PVs. And there are, of course, countries in the EU that they believe that nuclear is clean. So you understand it's a very complex environment. We need to have less introversion in Europe in order to defend ourselves. And certainly unity is one of the most important things to develop something jointly and sustainably. Otherwise, if every country looks at itself, we may be reinventing the wheel, and we may not have the funding in order to keep reinventing the wheel.
Can I ask you one question, which is not specifically related to this bit, but how goes the exploration drive for natural gas in Cyprus and connection to the island of Cyprus?
Yes, definitely. Of course, it's very difficult to see what is on the screen, But I will say a few words on what is happening in the Eastern Mediterranean with regards, I mean, on our side of the Eastern Mediterranean. There is quite some activity, but in terms of geopolitics, what is happening, we have a country in the north of Cyprus which is not that friendly, if I can call it in this way, in a very friendly way, in a very polite way, sorry. On the south part, we have a country which is Egypt. You understand that Egypt is facing quite some challenges. They are not, they cannot support themselves from the discoveries of natural gas in their exclusive economic zone. The majority of what you see on the screen, I don't know if you can see it, it's dry wells. There is not much gas anymore in that part of Egypt. And at the end of the day, this country with 130 million population, you understand, is in a big challenge which they are trying to keep their citizens calm, because at the end of the day, the citizens, if they cannot buy a piece of bread, you understand, they will go into revolutions. And this is, it will create a lot of instability in our neighborhood, and this is something we do not want. Nobody wants it. It's a global matter, and we all focus on Egypt, what is happening there. Because if there is no enough gas in order to push it, in order to convert it to power, you understand that there will be blackouts, there will be revolutions. The Islamist Brotherhood is waiting to see what is happening. So we have a role to play, I mean, in the region there. In terms of Cyprus, we do have some wealth, if I can call it this way. We have some discoveries which indeed currently they can, the quantities they can go up to, so far the quantities are 17 TCF, more or less, in the whole exclusive economic zone. The problem is that we do not have the infrastructure in connecting these, let's say, discoveries which they sit in different parts of the EEZ, the exclusive economic zone. So the obvious direction of these discoveries is to connect them via, I mean, through infrastructure to the infrastructure which exists in Egypt, because there you have the liquefaction plants. By laying pipelines towards the liquefaction plants, immediately you can liquefy and get the product to the international markets. And certainly one of the markets which is a target market is Europe. For the liquefied gas coming out from Cyprus, I mean from Egypt, which is Cyprus gas, a logical destination could be Alexandroupolis. I mean, with the FSRU they are operating now, and I hope efficiently, Minister Skylakakis, I think it's going well. And you understand that the conversation that we will have in the next days with the Egyptian government is that we are going to conclude on a host government agreement. Host government agreement is the agreement between the investors, which is the companies like Eni, Total, ExxonMobil, that they are operators in our exclusive economic zone, with the host government, which is Egypt, in order to commercialize the product which will be coming out from the exclusive economic zone of Cyprus. The first discovery that will be commercialized, the expectation, at least on our side, is will be Kronos. Kronos is a 5 TCF discovery. Operator is Eni. The other partner of Eni is Total. And the reason that it could be the first discovery that will be developed is because it sits within 70 kilometers away from the Zohr infrastructure. The Zohr infrastructure is a big discovery in the exclusive economic zone of Egypt that can connect Kronos with a pipeline into the Zohr facilities, straight into the liquefaction plants of Egypt, immediately for export.
Thank you. That's what we needed, was a good summary of it. And now, if I get 2 out of 3, I'm doing all right. Sanja Bozhinovska,
You got it.
over to you as your country's first ever Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources and Mining.
So thank you, John. Thank you for the invitation. And as you said, North Macedonia, since last June, has first-time Ministry for Energy, Mining, and Mineral Resources. So we started first with the legislation. So now we are working on the energy law, which is completely in accordance with the European Union. And then we have the law for renewables. I heard from the colleague that they are not offering any more subsidies in battery storage. We are now there, so we are just beginning to implement the battery storage. As far as I heard, yes, Trump administration is very important, but just to remind you, a couple of years ago, Germany was promoting the renewables. And it was after Fukushima that nuclear energy was not good, and now it's green and accepted. So we also a coal-dependent country. We are now, according to the EU legislation, we are for the just transition and the green agenda. The estimation was around 3 billion that we will need financially to have the green agenda. We started the last 5 years, we have a big increase in the renewable energy. We have around 700 megawatts of solar panels. We have around 100 megawatts of new wind energy plants. However, in order to substitute the coal, we need baseload energy. So we need to think about this. And when we have the new storage, then we can think of the complete substitution of the coal, but that won't happen very fast. We have some targets from EU. We are doing our best. However, we'll need baseload energy combined with the battery storage. We are in a central position. So we are now discussing, I think these days, finally, we will get the approval from the Europe Investment Bank in order to have the gas connector with Greece. So we are waiting these days to be finalized, and then we can start building the gas connector with Greece. And then we sign memorandum with Serbia, so we can be a transit route for the gas, because we have only with Bulgaria at the moment connection. Another thing regarding the electricity is we are opening a tender procedure with EBRD with Albania, and then we will be connected with all our neighbors. Regarding the energy exchange, we have from last year, and we are working on market coupling with Greece, so we can have an EU border. That's also very important. So we have a lot of common project with Greece. And what is important, we are also having some innovative technologies. So we are now aware that we need more regional cooperation, because last year there was a blackout, and it was in Croatia, Montenegro, Albania, and Bosnia. So the cause of this blackout was not communicating the system operators. So I think that even though we are a small country, we are important crossroad. We need to be in touch with all the neighbors, and we need to work about the energy stability also. And another important topic is also the cybersecurity. Which is very important topic, and I think that also digitalization and AI should be implemented. That's new technologies, but we are working on this with the finance institutions in order to help us.
Thank you for making the point about cybersecurity, because we haven't really discussed the security of what's going on. And we have several things that come across. One, we have had several incidents of subsea pipelines being broken for one reason or another. Sometimes suspected sabotage, sometimes accidental trawling, we don't know. We know the vulnerability of above ground or even shallow ground buried pipelines to sabotage. And now we have the whole question of electricity cables. So quite apart from the, as it were, overt signaling of one country to another that it will stop supplies, we get the covert actions that stop supplies. Now, thanks, because you raised that issue, can I ask you, how do you protect
Yes,
North Macedonia? And then I'll ask the same to Greece and Cyprus.
Yes, we had last year one incident, and after that there is also a new Ministry for Digitalization, and we are now working for a whole new complete strategy for cybersecurity. We started also with data center, with second data center, and we will integrate all the transmission network and the production power plant with the ministry. So we are working on it. We just started to improve the cybersecurity of the country.
And what is the situation in Greece then concerning your work on protection against cyber or other attacks of infrastructure?
Look, for the cybersecurity, it is we have gone a long way from being in a bad situation to improving things. Still, cybersecurity is always an arms race. It's, you can never be vigilant enough. In what we have seen in the last few years, the last couple of years, is not cybersecurity issues as much as physical security issues. You have seen what happened in Ukraine when their physical infrastructure was targeted, and that turned Ukraine from a exporting country in electricity to an importing country of electricity, together with blackouts and serious other situations. We have seen what happened with cables in the Baltic Sea, and in terms of physical security, one thing is certain, that the more concentrated your energy sources are, the more exposed you are to physical security issues. In that case, renewables offer a much safer road, because they have to work, they need a much bigger network, so the network is much more resilient in terms of physical aspects, and you also have the structures themselves are tens of thousands, so they are very difficult to target. However, you have weak points. These are the cables, especially and especially the transmission infrastructure, the ones that turn electricity from high voltage to medium and low voltage. These are the most vulnerable things that you have, plus your LNG terminals. These are also a vulnerable spot in any system, as it was in the past, I'm afraid.
And how would Cyprus like to consider the question of its physical and cyber security, George?
Okay. The more attention energy attracts, because energy is the product, but most importantly, it's the infrastructure. So you understand any attack, cyber attack, it will be mostly related to the infrastructure. Now, in terms of pipelines, I mean, you need physically to intervene in order to make an attack, which I agree with Minister Skylakakis is mostly physical, let's say, intervention. But all this infrastructure usually is supported by digital, let's say, and programs which they sit on either side of the infrastructure. And this is where the vulnerability is, and this is where we need to be vigilant on what we protect. Now, the electrical interconnections, I can tell that because they link very much to digitization, you understand that anything that relates to the electrical interconnections is a potential for an incident. I'm taking away the physical, let's say, interventions, but also from my previous experience, I experienced some interventions by hackers that they were pipelines moving crude oil from Canada to the US. And they stopped the supply of huge quantities to the US of crude oil by intervening to the systems which they were algorithms, let's say, focusing on the delivery of the product. And they were asking for ransom money. I mean, this is what it is. Unfortunately, I will not say which are the companies, but we had to pay the ransom money. Otherwise, the product wouldn't have been in the US. So you understand that all this is very important, and we need to develop the systems which they prevent any cyber attacks. How we can best do it, you understand, usually those they do it, they are more advanced than those they defend it. And the more the geopolitical unrest we see around the world, like the Russia-Ukraine war, the Israeli war, the Israel war with Gaza, and any other unrest that we see, it's a potential of developing such attacks on systems which they relate to energy. What we do in Cyprus, we try to, let's say, to be upfront. Whatever we develop, we have next to what we develop, someone that provides the support in order to defend any attacks, but it's impossible to be always ahead of the game. It's a difficult game to play.
There's one last subject which Sanja brought up earlier when she spoke about the planned gas connections both to Greece and then north up to Serbia, that is basically the vertical gas corridor that has been suggested in the past. And we've also got in Cyprus the whole question of whether or not there would be an East Med pipeline, and in the centre is Greece. So can I ask each of you in turn how you view, in particular, gas and electricity interconnections in the area, the expansion of them? Sanja, would you like to start?
I think it's very important because we need to diversify the resources, and I think it's very good that we will have two borders for the gas interconnectors, and then we will be a transit route through our country, through Serbia, and then we will go in EU, like Hungary and Austria. So that's very good for us. And then regarding electricity, when we connect with Albania, we can also be in Italy with the underwater cable. And I think it's very good that we are connected with all the neighbors, so we can be kind of a central hub for the electricity.
George, would you like to comment about the East Med and pipelines and electricity connections?
Okay, I will just comment on that. Nowadays, the consumption is not where the production is. And this is the case. And we need somehow to take the product, which is energy, to where the consumption is. You either move it and transport it by pipelines. Pipelines is not the easiest thing in the world to lay. It's the most efficient, most probably, in terms of energy efficiency. You put one unit in a pipeline on the left and you deliver one unit on the right at the destination, whereas you put one unit on one side of an interconnector and on the other side you get half the unit. So these are the things which technology is not there as yet in order to support the easy form of transporting, let's say, energy. And I am a big believer of interconnections, electricity interconnections. However, the technology, my personal opinion, humble opinion, is not as yet there to deliver the efficiency that we are looking for. We miss to say that one of the big projects that we are dealing with is the Great Sea Interconnector, which connects Israel, Cyprus, and Crete is already connected or will be connected with mainland Greece. So that's a big project and a good example of what the two countries and Israel in the near future we will be aiming for in order to deliver.
And can I ask Minister Skylakakis for last word on how you feel Greece's role in these interconnections?
Well, Greece is in the middle of big markets, both in terms of production of gas and renewables and in terms of consumption, Europe, the big markets of Europe. Being in the middle is not something that is void of geopolitical importance, but in my mind, we must always bring forward the efficiency of everything we do. So I believe that we must look into the efficiencies of interconnectors, and when they are efficient, then they will create peace and prosperity. And we are open to all efficient interconnections between the markets that we stand in between. And we have moved on that policy in very different aspects, from gas going from Azerbaijan to Italy in the past. Electrical interconnections were very well connected with our neighbors, and we last year we doubled our interconnection with Bulgaria, for example, and we keep on improving these interconnections. One very important one is the Great Sea Interconnector that George talked about. And there are also strategic strategic interconnections, for example, the one that we are discussing with Egypt, or the one that we are discussing with Saudi Arabia. So there is a lot of things going on, but we must all be based on energy efficiency. On efficiency, not energy efficiency, but in the end, energy efficiency.
May I
efficiency of interconnectors.
All of you very, very much, and just make one sort of point. You mentioned coherence, efficiency, technology. If I can add one more word, it's flexibility in order to pursue both the green agenda and to ensure that so long as we still need one fossil fuel, gas, it flows freely throughout the area. So may I thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I have one more comment, if I may?
Yes.
Okay, because I have been listening the previous conversation with Andonis, I think, Seferlis or something, was the moderator. The previous conversation, and I was listening to complaints, grids and investors and all the good stuff that we hear these days. I can tell you that it's the same conversation that I listen to in Poland, in Germany, and in all the so-called developed countries. I mean, we are talking about grids, smart grids, investments in grids. So I believe that instead of thinking that all these problems, they are concentrated in Greece because the conversation it was around Greece, I can tell you honestly that it's all over the world. And I can tell you that Greece, and I'm following very closely what's the developments in Greece, and I talk on behalf of Minister Skylakakis. It's good sometimes someone to speak about you, Minister, is that Greece has developed a lot, I can tell you, on renewables, on regulation, and on the big progress that Greece made on many things that they link to green energy and the green transition. Even on the targets, the decarbonization, Greece is well ahead. So I suggest that we stop complaining.
because I think our time really is up. And we've got another group coming.
Thank you very much.